Charles Spencer Chaplin Jr. was born on April 16, 1889 to Hannah Chaplin, née Hill, and Charles Chaplin Sr. His paternal grandmother came from the Smith family, who belonged to Romani people. There is no official record of his birth, although Chaplin believed he was born at East Street, Walworth, in South London. His parents had married 4 years previously, at which time Charles Sr. became the legal guardian of Hannah's first son, Sidney John Hill. At the time of his birth, Chaplin's parents were both music hall entertainers. Hannah, the daughter of a shoemaker, had a brief and unsuccessful career under the stage name Lily Harley, while Charles Sr., a butcher's son, was a popular singer. Although they never divorced, Chaplin's parents were estranged by around 1891. The following year, Hannah gave birth to a third son, George Wheeler Dryden, fathered by the music hall entertainer Leo Dryden. The child was taken by Dryden at 6 months old and did not re-enter Chaplin's life for 30 years. Chaplin's childhood was fraught with poverty and hardship, making his eventual trajectory the most dramatic of all the rags to riches stories ever told, according to his authorized biographer David Robinson. Chaplin's early years were spent with his mother and brother Sidney in the London district of Kennington. Hannah had no means of income other than occasional nursing and dressmaking, and Chaplin Sr. provided no financial support. As the situation deteriorated, Chaplin was sent to Lambeth Workhouse when he was 7 years old. The council housed him at the Central London District School for Paupers, which Chaplin remembered as a forlorn existence. He was briefly reunited with his mother 18 months later, but Hannah was forced to readmit her family to the workhouse in July 1898. The boys were promptly sent to Norwood Schools, another institution for destitute children. In September 1898, Hannah was committed to Cane Hill Mental Asylum. She had developed a psychosis seemingly brought on by an infection of syphilis and malnutrition. For the 2 months she was there, Chaplin and his brother Sidney were sent to live with their father, whom the young boys scarcely knew. Charles Sr. was by then severely alcoholic, and life there was bad enough to provoke a visit from the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Chaplin's father died 2 years later, at 38 years old, from cirrhosis of the liver. Hannah entered a period of remission but, in May 1903, became ill again. Chaplin, then 14, had the task of taking his mother to the infirmary, from where she was sent back to Cane Hill. He lived alone for several days, searching for food and occasionally sleeping rough, until Sidney, who had joined the Navy 2 years earlier, returned. Hannah was released from the asylum 8 months later, but in March 1905, her illness returned, this time permanently. "There was nothing we could do but accept poor mother's fate," Chaplin later wrote, and she remained in care until her death in 1928. After the release of Shoulder Arms, Chaplin requested more money from First National, which was refused. Frustrated with their lack of concern for quality and worried about rumors of a possible merger between the company and famous players, Lasky, Chaplin joined forces with Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford and D.W. Griffith to form a new distribution company, United Artists, in January 1919. The arrangement was revolutionary in the film industry, as it enabled the 4 partners, all creative artists, to personally fund their pictures and have complete control. Chaplin was eager to start with the new company and offered to buy out his contract with First National. They refused and insisted that he complete the final 6 films owed. Before the creation of United Artists, Chaplin married for the first time. The 16-year-old actress Mildred Harris had revealed that she was pregnant with his child, and in September 1918, he married her quietly in Los Angeles to avoid controversy. Soon after, the pregnancy was found to be false. Chaplin was unhappy with the union and, feeling that marriage stunted his creativity, struggled over the production of his film Sunnyside. Harris was by then legitimately pregnant, and on July 7, 1919, gave birth to a son. Norman Spencer Chaplin was born malformed and died 3 days later. The marriage ended in April 1920, with Chaplin explaining in his autobiography that they were irreconcilably mismated. Losing the child, plus his own childhood experiences, are thought to have influenced Chaplin's next film, which turned the tramp into the caretaker of a young boy. For this new venture, Chaplin also wished to do more than comedy and, according to Luvish, make his mark on a changed world. Filming on The Kid began in August 1919, with 4-year-old Jackie Coogan, his co-star. The Kid was in production for 9 months until May 1920, and, at 68 minutes, it was Chaplin's longest picture to date. Dealing with issues of poverty and parent-child separation, The Kid was one of the earliest films to combine comedy and drama. It was released in January 1921 with instant success, and by 1924 had been screened in over 50 countries. Chaplin spent 5 months on his next film, the two-reeler The Idle Class. Work on the picture was for a time delayed by more turmoil in his personal life. First National had on April 12 announced Chaplin's engagement to the actress May Collins, whom he had hired to be his secretary at the studio. By early June, however, Chaplin suddenly decided he could scarcely stand to be in the same room as Collins, but instead of breaking off the engagement directly, he stopped coming into work, sending word that he was suffering from a bad case of influenza, which May knew to be a lie. Ultimately, work on the film resumed, and following its September 1921 release, Chaplin chose to return to England for the first time in almost a decade. He wrote a book about his journey, titled My Wonderful Visit. He then worked to fulfill his first national contract, releasing Payday in February 1922. The Pilgrim, his final short film, was delayed by distribution disagreements with the studio and released a year later. By October 1977, Chaplin's health had declined to the point that he needed constant care. In the early morning of Christmas Day 1977, Chaplin died at home after having a stroke in his sleep. He was 88 years old. The funeral, on December 27th, was a small and private Anglican ceremony, according to his wishes. Chaplin was interred in the Coursier-sur-Vevey cemetery. Among the film industry's tributes, director René Clair wrote, "He was a monument of the cinema, of all countries and all times, the most beautiful gift the cinema made to us." Actor Bob Hope declared, "We were lucky to have lived in his time." Chaplin left more than $100 million to his widow. On March 1, 1978, Chaplin's coffin was dug up and stolen from its grave by Roman Wardas and Gant Shoganov. The body was held for ransom in an attempt to extort money from his widow, Una Chaplin. The pair were caught in a large police operation in May, and Chaplin's coffin was found buried in a field in the nearby village of Noville. It was reinterred in the Coursier Cemetery in a reinforced concrete vault.